everyone. I'm here with my great friend Peter Freeman from Crunch Time Coaching, also hosting Tennis Con coming near you. One of my favorite events of the year, one of my favorite people ever in tennis and in life as well. Peter Freeman, how are you doing, man?
Oh, that's sweet, Mehrban. Well, I'm doing great. It's always great to be with you. Big honor. Great job on everything you're doing. Seen a lot of you're always making some awesome content. Seen a lot of that come through on my Instagram feed. So always puts a smile on my face. Good job.
Thanks a lot, Peter. I'm just trying to be like you, man, because you're putting out so much great stuff. Really enjoy it. Very authentic, and one of my favorite content creators. So I really love seeing your stuff out there. And like I said, Tennis Con's coming up. We'll have a link to that and talk about that a bit more. But today I wanted to talk with Peter about the 3 key habits of tennis champions and how to develop them in 90 days. So really exciting topic, something that is actually, when we were talking about the topic, I got very motivated and inspired because I think this is something that, if you listen closely and then take some steps, as we'll talk about later as well with the 90 days aspect, then you're going to really level up your game. So, Peter, yeah, just, what do you think about just like the importance of habits in general and how they can help your game?
Well, yeah, today's talk is going to be all about really centering around habits and mindset. And but what I notice about the people who achieve great things, there's always these common threads, and we often know about them, think about them, want to follow this path, but we don't do it in this order, and we don't follow through to the same level as the people who seem to succeed at a high level. So that's what I want to kind of go over today, that the subtle differences between so many people out there who want to achieve a certain goal versus the people who we're looking up to and going, how did they actually do that?
Yeah, it's really tough. It's a big problem for so many people. For myself, I've struggled, a lot with this where, you know that you can achieve, great things, and you set the goal. Maybe you do what you need to do in terms of like working towards that goal for a little while, and then eventually something pops up or you don't have the same, motivation, things like that. And then you just, you stop plodding along, and then you lose momentum, and then you stop and you go, you go somewhere else, and it all stops. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited to hear about that. So, I mean, I'll pretty much let you lead, any way you like, Peter. I mean, I guess if you want, we can kind of talk about like your first habit, or we can go different directions. So really up to you.
Yeah. So the first thing is having a clear vision. If you even think about Novak Djokovic, I remember a 60 Minutes interview where he showed in his house, he's like, I made like a Wimbledon trophy out of tinfoil, something like that. And I would hold it up and I would look at it and I would imagine myself winning it. And it's different than another kid kind of playing pretend. Like his vision was so clear and he was so serious from a young age. There are videos that I'm playing with his coach when he's just a little kid, and you could see how hard and how focused he was. And so, every shot meant something to that little boy a lot more than another person. And so I actually have 3 stories to tell about to kind of illustrate how you want to create a vision and how you want to do it. And actually the first one, and we're talking about Tennis Con, and you've interviewed him as well, is Brent Abel, who has won 21 gold balls. And I was interviewing him for this today, so it kind of fit into what I want to talk about anyway. And he's like, yeah, won 21 gold balls, but he's like, I think in 2021, he had 9. So think about how many he's won since then. And one of his tips was to write down what you're going to achieve and say these things to yourself daily, at least a couple times, and throughout the day, and at least a couple times a day. And I mean, he really believes that this is one of the things that made him get to where he was. He's like, he's won gold balls, but singles wise, I think he said he was between like 11 and 17 in the nation. But he said, I'm just going to write these things down and I'm going to go pie in the sky and see what happens. So he wrote down that he was going to be number one in the country, and I even believe in the world, in singles and in doubles at his age group. Think about that. He wrote down that he was going to be number one in the world in both of these categories, where he said that he had never done that before. And so he would write it down, and he says, the way you write it down, it's not like, I want to be number one in the world. It's very specific. And then it brings me to my second story, which is about me, which he said, it's the end of 2023. I'm number one in the world in singles and doubles. I have won this title at this place. I have won that title at that place. I beat this person in the finals in this tournament. You see? So he's creating a clear vision of the tournaments he needs to win, the things he needs to accomplish, the people he needs to beat. And he acts like it's already been done. Not like, I want to have, $1 million in the bank in the next 5 years. It's like, it's 5 years and 5 years later, and I'm a millionaire. That kind of mindset. And so when he said this, it reminded me of a very specific story that happened to me. And I was not the architect of it, I have to say, but it was a very powerful thing that happened in my life, to where I moved here to Atlanta, Georgia. Now I think it's close to 20 years. And so this probably happened between 15 and 18 years ago. I don't know. But I got a director position to teach tennis at a Gold's Gym in Douglasville, a very small town. So first of all, people don't really care about tennis in Douglasville. And have you ever thought, Gold's Gym, I bet you'd have great tennis there, right? No, of course not. But the guy who owned the Gold's Gym, the family that owned the Gold's Gym, they had 5 really nice tennis courts in the back of the Gold's Gym. And this guy, Skip, who gave me this lesson, was also a very good tennis player. In fact, he played on the satellite tour for a little bit, and he coached a lot of tennis. But he's very, very strong on mindset. In fact, you can buy some of his books. One of his books is called Grateful for Everything, and it's really awesome. And so he helped me write what is called a strategic objective. And so let's just say the year was, I forget what the year is, but let's just say the year was 2011, okay? So we wrote this strategic objective. It's 2012. I'm the Georgia Pro of the Year. Mehrban, my first lesson at Gold's Gym, I'm going to myself, what am I doing in my life? Like, I was completely lost. I was out there with like 2 kids who didn't care at all about tennis. I had no program at all. I had no connections at all. Georgia is a tennis hotbed, and the South is a place of connectivity. People like know each other for generations, And I am coming from California. I have no connections, and I have absolutely no program. But I've got this strategic objective written that I am the Georgia Pro of the Year. My program is doing this, this, and that. I'm running a charity tournament that's raising this amount of money. I'm volunteering at these different events for the USTA. All of the stuff that has not happened. But we wrote it down like I already did it. And then within 1 year, I won the Georgia Pro of the Year. That's how powerful this stuff can be. And I got to be honest, he believed it and saw it more than I did. But he kept we kept going back to that strategic objective. Every time we had a loss, let's read the strategic objective. Every time we had a victory, see, that's on the strategic objective. It just happened. It was our guide the entire year. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about this, by the way. It was so cool. Then, last story. I was watching this program on Netflix called Receiver. I don't remember the guy's name, but he last year was the top receiver, I think, in receiving yards and touchdowns. And he was one of the last receivers picked in the draft. And he said, what I did is I wrote down every receiver drafted before me. and I look at it before every single practice, every single workout, every single game. I look at that list. And he also said, and you could see it too, because he would then, his dad was also an athlete. I think he was like a professional bodybuilder. So he was a very focused guy. And so that's where his son got a lot of his habits. So, it would show them, going over the house or going, and they were always talking about, how many touchdowns are you going to score today? How many yards are you going to catch? How many of this are you going to do? So every single game, he had a very, very clear vision of what was going to happen in that game before the game. And then you're watching the highlights of the game. They're recording all this before the game. Then they show the highlights of the game. And if that's not happened in the game, it's incredible the way it can actually work.
That is super powerful. That makes me want to do the same thing. And I'm wondering, Peter, what is it about writing it down and referencing it that really helps you on your way? I guess, is it just, it's like a reminder, refocusing, maybe you have a setback or something, but then you read it, or, instead of forgetting about the goal, like making yourself, have that habit of reading it gets you to, again, like reset and say, okay, I got to go after this, and push away other things that aren't the priority. Like, what is it in your mind that, like, how does this technique, how is it so powerful?
Well, I think the most powerful thing, and the thing that cannot be left out, is you have to write it like it's already happened. You must write it like it's already happened. So I can tell you, as I was writing it, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to write, because you have to have a very clear vision. And not only do you have to be putting down the goals, you then have to be writing down the steps that it's going to take to achieve those goals. And then you also have to draw out kind of an emotional story detail of how it's going to look and how it's going to feel. So it's just not about a bullet point goal. There's a story behind it. There's feelings. There's how people are going to feel and view you. It's very, very powerful. When you write down a really clear strategic objective. That's what it was called.
Very powerful, very powerful. So, is there some maybe goal that either you've also written down like that recently, or maybe there's something that you want to, write down? And if so, like, how would you write it, or how have you written it?
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting is, I would say one of the things, I remember driving with Skip, and I don't think this was really in his best interest. So I appreciate him letting me kind of share this vision with him. But I remember driving the car with him, we were going somewhere, and I said, no, I'm going to be one of the most popular online instructors in the world, like not just like in the state or anything, so that was a vision that I had, and that I kind of kept my mind on. And I'm not the most popular, but I think I am one of a select group that's been able to figure out how to do it and make a comfortable living from it, which is another level over having a certain amount of views or likes or shares.
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you think that, writing it in the method that you said, where it's like you've accomplished it, does that kind of maybe feed into telling you that that's who you are? It's like, this is happening, like, or this has happened, I'm going to be this way, versus like writing it the other way of that, like, I will do this.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's so important, and you have to work on your mind. I was lucky enough to where every step of the way I had Skip, who I would say, he had more experience at that point, and he believed in it more than maybe even I believed in it. But by sitting with him, and then when something happened, him there pointing out, like, look, isn't this amazing? We wrote this down, and now we actually did this event, and this many people showed up. You see, that's right on our strategic objective. So I think it does help if you don't quite believe it. There's some people that are just born with that vision. Like Novak obviously was born with that vision. But if you're somebody who's like, I think I can do it, the whole train, like I think I can, but maybe if you need a little extra help with belief, if you have somebody that likes you and you view as a mentor to maybe share your vision and your goals with them, I think that was powerful. I don't know if I wrote that strategic objective by myself without Skip, if I would have been the Georgia Pro of the Year at the end of the year. I really think it was him. Not only just remind us of the things we need to do, but like he almost had like this magical, whimsical way that he would talk when something actually happened. And he was like, see, it's happening. It's going to happen. He really, I would say 60, maybe even 70%, even though I was doing 100% of the work, I think he almost manifested it more than I did, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Gotcha. So very interesting. So yeah, I mean, first step, clear vision. Maybe what's an example of what, we as tennis players, obviously a ton of us, listening now that are playing in USC leagues, for example, or just, recreational, trying to up our level. So like maybe what's one or two examples of clear visions that we should write for ourselves? And obviously, a lot of us, it may be a bit too far stretched to make it into the pros or win a Grand Slam. But like, yeah, what are, what's an example of what you would have us maybe like make as a clear goal to write down?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's people who want to get to another level. They're 3.5s, they want to be 4.0s. So they could be like, it's, 2025 or it's going to be 2026, right? You kind of need to start to write this for 2026, right? Because we're almost at 2025. So it's like, it's January 1, 2026. I am now a 4.0 player. I am playing on this team at my club. I'm playing, number one or number two doubles, whatever you think would be just an amazing dream. I'm playing number one doubles on this team. My record is this. I have improved my forehand topspin by doing this drill, 5 days a week at 6 a.m. That kind of vision is what it takes to actually have it come to fruition.
Right. So maybe something like, I have increased my serve speed by 10 miles per hour. And then so you write that down and then you're looking at that, pretty much daily, like maybe a few times a day or something to remind yourself of what's going to happen. Like, is that kind of basically?
Yeah, exactly. But you have to have a reason why you're improving it by 10 miles an hour. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I go to the courts and I do these certain drills, And you got to make sure you're picking the right drills. That was another thing. Again, the vision that Skip was able to create is he knew, because he was also the Georgia Pro of the Year before. He knew the steps that the USTA like. So I did a lot of local charity events, a lot of USTA events, and also grew my program by a certain amount and donated a lot of my time that year. And they liked that. So people were like, who is this guy? No one else is doing all these things. Let's give him the Georgia Pro of the Year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff, Peter. That's great. Clear vision. Love how you covered that and the steps that we need to take. So, what is number 2 on your list?
Okay. I think number 2 and number 3 are going to be so good, especially when you hear number 3. Okay. So you have the vision, you write it out, you have your strategic objective. Now it definitely comes down to habits, right? And making sure running your game plan, like on a daily basis. And then for referring to your strategic objective and seeing, are you keeping on track? And the reason why you need to make these habits, especially with tennis, is that if you keep doing these habits, let's say you look at, like, I think one of the biggest differences, and especially when we take men's tennis, you look at a 3.5 tennis player and maybe anywhere and it depends on the area and all that stuff, but maybe 50 to 80% of the men maybe still have at some point a little bit of a waiter's tray, right? Where you start to look at a higher level 4-0 guy, especially one that's going to get invited to play with some 4-5 men. Pretty much none of them do, right? They pretty much all have, even though they don't serve like Roger Federer, they have a lot of the same check marks that they're clicking off the box. So if you've got to accomplish that to get to a 4 level, like I need to get rid of my waiter tray, then you have to do these habits over and over and over again. These tiny, and this is what people don't like to do. They like to go out and practice baskets of serves. They don't like to film themselves particularly. Maybe on occasion they do. So this is where they're starting to fall off the wagon. They can say, like, I go hit a bucket of serves every day. But are you willing to do the tiny, tiny habits to create automation? And that is the struggle, because the learning process goes from unconscious incompetence, meaning I don't know what I don't know, right? So maybe when you first learn and you start to tap the ball and play it forward with a frying pan grip because you're like, hey, my friend said, let's go play tennis. We thought it'd be a laugh, and I just tried to serve any way I could, to then all of a sudden it's conscious incompetence. Like, oh, now I'm watching and actually see the way they're serving. My coach told me that's something called a continental grip, and that the palm has to stay down, but I have no idea how to do it. And then the hardest part and the most tedious part is to work through conscious competence, meaning that you know about it, and then you can be competent in it. And this is a long runway. And this takes a lot of tiny step progressions. And many people, because you have to think so much in the beginning, conscious competence means I'm thinking while doing. And in the beginning of that stage, when you're first getting a little competent at it, you're thinking a lot. And you're also doubting. You're like, am I doing this right? Like, man, this is hard. Like, I feel awful. So to work through that is where most people fail. And that's why your strategic objective is so important. And that's why focusing on tiny wins, especially on the beginning, is so, so important. So that hopefully after 90 days, let's say 90 days could be a good benchmark. Hopefully after 90 days, if you're really doing your job, I don't think you're completely out of conscious competence, but I think you are so far down the road that it's almost coming to the point of unconscious competence, which means I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just doing this stuff, right? So that becomes where your habits are so important, because you've got to get this automation happening. I also watched an interview today preparing for this. I take your podcast very serious, Mehrban.
Thank you, my friend.
There was LeBron James' physical trainer for the last 20 years. And the name of the podcast was called High Performance. So the guy asked him, what is high performance? What's the definition of high performance for you and LeBron? And he said, you have to go through the journey that is necessary. So you don't get to go into high performance until you go through the painful journey, and then you have the chance. It's like you have to do everything first, which a lot of people don't want to hear. You have to do everything first before someone hands you the keys and said, now you're high performance. Now you're elite level, right? So he basically said, you've got to go through this journey first. Then once you go through the journey, then you have the chance at being a high performer in your field. Thought that was really good.
That's really good. So in terms of this step, like, how would you frame it for somebody who wants to, improve their serve? So obviously we have to do step one of writing down the vision of that. And then, we move to step two, and then we go on the court, and then we make sure to film ourselves. And so that's kind of the difference, right? Like, instead of just mindlessly going out there, you're really like staying really focused and making sure that you're doing every little thing that you need to do to progress instead of just kind of just doing what you want to do.
So what exactly is the exact question?
Well, it's just kind of like walk us through maybe like if for this step 2, exactly what we'd want to do if we want to, let's say, I have a big kick serve. Like let's maybe go through that scenario. What would you do for the step 2?
Can I just do the waiter tray? Because
Yeah, waiter tray is good.
too. With a lot of adults, I don't even want them to spend, get so consumed by the kids.
That's true. Yeah.
But so again, it's really, first of all, you have your vision of what you want to have happen. That's always there. And then, I would say, like, I've got a 3-day racket drop challenge. I'm pretty much sure if somebody really went through my 3-day racket drop challenge just over and over and over again, they have no choice but to get rid of the waiter tray. So a goal could be like, I'm going to go through Pete's racket drop challenge. Each day is about 20 minutes. Let's say you really want to get rid of it. Let's say you're going to get money. Let's say I'll pay you money if you get rid. Maybe I should do this. Shit, this is a good idea. Anyway, let's say somebody's going to pay you money if you can actually get rid of your waiter tray in 90 days. I would go, I'm going to do day 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back, 3 times a day, 5 days a week. And if you and a lot of the work is done, I believe to get rid of this waiter tray, you need to start out by not hitting a tennis ball. You need to do a lot of actually watching yourself and verifying the moves and really understanding what your hand is doing. Like detach from the racket. And, for the people watching this instead of listening, you're really watching your hand and seeing that your palm is staying down and that it's coming up on edge and then you got a little pronation there and then you're coming around. It's like really making sure that you can first do it without the hand. And just not without the hand. You got to keep your hand without the racket, I meant to say. But there's a lot of people that for whatever reason, even though they know it makes logical sense to go, yeah, but like, give me the racket. Like, I ain't got time for that. And that's where you're wrong. The pros, if you watch the pros, watch Carlos Alcaraz warm up. The guy is still doing so many exercises without the racket. I've seen him practice a serve and a hit without a racket, using his hands, using a medicine ball. Like the pros, even though they're already in the stage of automation, are still going through these exercises. They're still doing it because they know how important it is at their level to literally walk out like a high performance sports vehicle every single time.
Yeah, 100%. Got to do it, man. Let's do step number 3, Peter. Excited to hear this one.
Okay, so step number 3, and this probably takes the most work, vision, self-awareness to be able to be good at it. It's being able to having a vision of what you want to look like, developing your habits, and then having the ability to make in-game adjustments to what you're feeling and doing that day. And everybody here listening should watch Roddick's interview with Seal. It is, Seal the singer. It is such a great interview. And Seal really understands. He loves tennis. This guy loves tennis. And he really understands the process of what it takes to be a great tennis player, even though he isn't one. But he's getting pretty good for, being a recreational player. And he says he doesn't skip one day. But he respects the game of tennis so much. He knows, he talks about how humbling it is. And he says that there are so many comparisons to singing and tennis. And Roddick was asked him, well, what would those be? He's like, I have to do my daily routines just like you have to do your daily routines. I I talk a certain way. I do certain scales. And, as you've seen singers warm up and they do I'm not going to do anything crazy stuff, but you know what I mean? All the vocal work. He's like, you need to do that. You have to do that until you basically achieve a level of perfection for your voice. Just like Roddick has achieved a level of perfection for his serve, Seal has achieved a level of perfection for his voice. But he said, and I thought this was really, really interesting. He's like, but Andy, just like in tennis, I probably, when I go on tour, my voice is probably only perfect like a handful of times a year. And I was like, wow, that's powerful, because that's exactly what it's like to be a tennis player. Like if most people were to watch certainly any pro play, almost everybody go, well, gosh, every time you play, you're perfect. But the pro would probably feel like, well, I wasn't really feeling my forehand today, or my serve was a little off, or I don't know. This just wasn't working, but I made it work. Even if they were to watch me and you hit because we played college tennis, they would go, wow, you guys are pretty good. The game must be easy, but I can tell you from me playing a lot of matches and recollecting those, there were so many days where, so many things were not working. But what Seal said was, he said sometimes his most perfect concerts were when his voice wasn't perfect. Because again, he was able to make that in-performance, adjustment. Realizing that my voice sounds a little like, I don't feel like this is a perfect Seal voice, but it's sounding like this, and I can kind of make some cool sounds with this voice tonight, or I can be more physical tonight to get the crowd more involved, or whatever it is, or my voice is cracking, but it sounds emotional. So I'll play on that to, make the performance better. And so this is a guy who's worked on his craft of being a singer his whole life. He pretty much is perfect, and probably mostly perfect in practice, but still when he goes out to give a concert, because there's so many variables involved, how exhausted is he? How is his voice feeling? What's the sound system like in the arena? All kinds of things. Is the venue big? Is the venue small? And he's learned how to deal with all these different variables and go, you know what? In this place, my voice is not going to sound like perfect the way I think I should sound, but it sounds like this. And that's a cool sound, because I'm going to really go with that today. When you can do that, then you are kind of a complete player. Because I think a lot of people go, well, shit, if I'm willing to go through step 1 and 2, that means when I go play a match, I should just be like perfect, right? My stroke should just be on autopilot. That's the sad part. Even though you have automated your strokes, nothing is ever on autopilot. You maybe get to do that 5 times a year.
Yeah. I'm with you, Peter. Forgetting who it was that I was interviewing. Maybe it was Palanicone, but they were just saying that you're basically like those times where everything's clicking is just a very small percentage, like you said, like 3-4%. And the rest is just, figuring it out. Maybe your forehand's not working one day, so you either go for much bigger targets, you add some more topspin, maybe you chip it more often. Some days your first serve isn't working, so you just try to, get in some more second serves. And it really forces you to really use your brain and be strategic and things like that. So that's a really tough one. That's really good. I mean, I personally think for me probably would be number 2 might be the toughest. Which one of these have you found out of the 3 steps to be the toughest for you?
Well, I think when you think about them all together, depending on your mindset, it can be depressing. You're like, well, if I'm going to do all this work and I'm not going to feel ever like complete comfort on the court, right? Then why bother? Mm-hmm. And here's the answer on that. Is the high performers understand that, there's so many variables in a match that they can't control. But the more they perfect all the elements of like fundamentals and basic strategy and things like that, the more they understand that on a deep level, they're able to be more aware of themselves and make these adjustments easier because they're able to take in this information a lot faster than somebody who's not working on this and somebody who's not prepared. So that is why you do that. Like I was even explaining to somebody that I gave a lesson to the other day. I'm like, you are doing fantastic. You know, you're doing great. But he was in the beginning stages of what we were trying to work on. But I kept saying, you're making a lot of progress. You're not giving yourself enough credit because he's really, really tough on himself. And I said, but you got to keep doing these exercises so that it can start to feel automated so that you're ready for the next piece. And I explained, like, if I'm working with a player that has developed a certain skill, you see, it's easier then to build on that skill and they can take in that information. Because when you're beginning to learn the skills and you're like, okay, now that's looking good. Now let's think about that. You know, now let's think about this. Then all of a sudden, if they're still in the beginning stages of it, the whole house falls down. I'm like, well, I'm overwhelmed again. Like I can't even do the first thing we just started to do, and we got pretty good at it for 30 minutes straight. Now I've lost it because you're still in all the beginning stages of that conscious competence. Where if you have somebody who's already where they can do it, they're unconscious competent, and then you're like, well, let's add this little idea. See, they're able to take that new idea and so much faster and just implement it, and then they're getting it going in a shorter amount of time. And so they can do that in practice, and they can do that in matches. So rather than one idea or one problem in a match overwhelming them, they're like, okay, this is a problem, but this is the way out of the problem, and this is how I can navigate that. So once you have all the tools set, it's easier to make in-game adjustments to where when everything's just you're kind of like holding the car together, it's built kind of raggedy, then somebody throws something at you, you're like, whoa, like this, everything falls apart really fast. That's why it's worth doing all this stuff.
Yeah, 100%, Peter. So, I mean, amazing information here. What step would you have, the audience members take, like they've, listened to this interview and heard all the great information you shared with us today? Like, what's the first step they should do?
Well, I think the first step is to look at your game and figure out what is important. Is it going to another level? Is it playing a certain position on your team? Is it winning a certain tournament? Like, for example, I have a woman who her goal and determination, she knows what she wants. She's 60 years old. She does not want to be on the USTA team. She does not want to play doubles. She does not want to join like a league where you kind of call somebody on the phone and meet up and play. She likes to play tournaments. And she figured out that in Europe, they actually have a big international adult kind of system over there where the tournaments, instead of having 4 people in it, they've got 32 people in it and 64 people in it. And so she said to me, I'm going to go play tournaments over in Europe. And she went over there and she won an international tournament with 32 players in there. The next tournament, she beat 3 players and she beat the number 1 woman from Austria in her age group. You see, that's having a clear vision of what you want. She knew exactly what she wants. So I think before you start working on something, go, I want to do this and I want to do it, because you got to really believe in it and really want it. That's why I tell people, hey, if you have a waiter tray and you just would like it to be gone, but you're not willing to do the work, don't make that one of your goals, because you can still go out and have a lot of fun and win a lot of matches at 3-5 with a waiter tray serve. It's fine. Not everybody has to get rid of the waiter tray. But if you're like, I want to be a 4-0 plus guy, or I want to someday want to play men's 4-5, then you absolutely have to make that in your strategic objective. There's no choice. So you have to be very clear about what you want. That's step 1.
Yeah, that's really good. First off, is this the same player who we both went and visited her house?
That's her, Ruth.
Oh, that's awesome.
She just won an international tournament.
Nice.
So happy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Congratulations. Very lovely person, and both of them actually that we hung out with. But yeah, amazing. I'm looking at some notes I made. I watched some of my interview with Paul Anacone, and he mentioned here exactly what you're talking about. You have to know your identity as a player, define the characteristics that make you a good player, and know your style of play, and then from there, try to work on what you need to work on. Again, of course, with the caveat of what Peter said, as if you're not gonna want to work on some specific technique, then that's fine. But I think that's that's the best way about going through things, is like what's your game all about, and like what things can you work on to most help you with that. So really good stuff, Peter. I'm sure you have quite a bit of content like similar to this topic on TennisCon, right? Can you tell us a bit more about that event and what's coming down the pike there?
Yeah, well, I think that this is the reason why tennis is such a great sport. Again, you have to have a certain mindset, I think, to really love tennis. So if people are listening to this podcast, they obviously love tennis. You've already made up your mind. If you're tuning into this, listening, you're like, I love tennis. There's no one listening to this who kind of likes tennis. So you love tennis. So if you love tennis, you have to accept, like, okay, there's lots of moving parts to this game. There's technique, there's strategy, there's the mind, and there's the body. And that's what TennisCon is all about. It's getting the best coaches in their field, and they attack all of the ingredients needed to be worked on in a consistent fashion to become the most complete player that you can become. And that's how we get 40 plus master coaches giving you master classes that you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet.
Yeah, lovely. And definitely, as I mentioned at the top of this show, I attend every year. I absolutely love the content there. And if you want to get your free ticket, just go to tennisfiles.com/tenniscon8 and or just check out the show notes page. The link will be right there. So real excited for that. Any other details you want to mention about TennisCon 8, Peter?
There's a huge detail I want to mention, actually. So
Sweet.
One of our legendary TennisCon coaches has been through hell lately. Gigi Fernandez, 17-time Grand Slam champion. We've been following her. She lives in Tampa. Tampa has been devastated back-to-back weeks with, kind of like once-in-a-century type storms, but they happen back-to-back. The first one, Helene, pretty much ruined her house to where they couldn't figure out if they just need to tear it down or if they can build it back. They hadn't even got to the point of making up their mind because it was so devastated. And then Milton came. I don't know what Milton did to her house, as well as so many people in that community. So what I'm doing is usually after you sign up, you sign up for TennisCon, then you can, if you want to watch it and get a lifetime pass, you can own it. And for the people that upgrade, I usually then give them another bonus offers that you can get some goodies for a very steep discount. Well, this year, you're still going to get that option, but every single cent, 100% of the money is going to go to Metropolitan Ministries, which helps people in the Tampa area get food, shelter, clothing, and helps people in the community get back up on their feet. I obviously would love to help everybody in North Carolina, everybody in Georgia, everybody, but I think that really the tennis community, the totally obsessed tennis players, if we rally behind this cause, we could actually make a difference in that community. We're like, wow, like you guys, thank you so much. Like this put a nice little dent, and we can really help a good amount of people with this money. So be looking for that after you upgrade and get your lifetime access pass. Like, for example, the first bonus that I give is something I actually spent $2,000, maybe even more of my own money to do, which is upgrade your forehand. I spent $500 on a lesson with Rick Macy. There's an hour recording of that. I flew out to Denver and took a lesson with Jeff Saldenstein. I took a lesson with Dr. Mark Kovacs here in Atlanta, and also a mental lesson with Jeff Greenwald, as well as put in bonus like training videos. I sold that for $97. If you just donate $10, you get a hold of that. And then there's a $50 level where I add more courses, a $100 level where I add a serve and out like a meeting, a one-on-one meeting too. Just not like drawing up like, here's your serve, good luck. We'll actually have a face-to-face meeting if you donate $100. If you donate $500, you're going to get like a boatload of courses plus, and of course you could donate $500 and not do this, but I want to do something special for the $500 people who do. On November 8th, a day after my birthday, you're going to come to Atlanta and we're going to train and have fun. And just, it all depends on how many people show up on what I can do with the people. But it's going to be a great tennis celebration. And again, 100% of the money is going to go to helping out the hurricane victims.
Wow, that's amazing, Peter. I always knew you're a amazing guy, but I mean, just more proof to add to the many great things you've been doing. So really highly encourage people to help out, and what a great way to do it. And you're getting a lot of great stuff, great content, and you're helping people out. So can't give you enough credit for that. And all the best to Gigi. I've been seeing her post on Instagram, and it's really tough to see, along with all the news clips of what's going on. So everybody, please definitely join TennisCon, and then highly consider making the upgrade, getting the upgrades to help out with that. So thank you, Peter. To wrap up, I mean, any last thoughts that you want to leave us with, any words of wisdom or anything else to close out?
Well, I guess, again, I'm just going to go back to the donation thing. Even if you donate $10, that's going to help a lot, and the only thing I'll say is the news cycle moves so fast. You don't know, but I mean, maybe even before TennisCon starts or halfway through TennisCon, there might be some other crazy thing that's we're coming up on the elections. I mean, there's so many things that they just go, well, that's not a story anymore. But believe me, like just because it's not on your TV in 2 or 3 weeks, the people in these communities are looking at months, if not years. Florida also is a very hard place to get insurance for your house. So there are some people to where this is going to have a lifetime impact. So, don't forget that. That's all I can say.
Yeah, definitely. And just wishing everyone the best. And, obviously, I mean, you're doing a great thing, and people really, really would appreciate it a lot if you could help out with that. I mean, just again, it's like really heart-wrenching to watch, what's going on and people posting about it and things like that. So thank you, Peter, for really focusing, on that important message. So, with that, again, everyone, please check out TennisCon, join, and consider donating, and enjoying the wonderful content that Peter's going to bring out. And can you give us the dates again, Peter, of the event?
Yeah. So, it's going to officially start October 28th week, but we've been doing lots of live streams and bonus videos and things like that already. I'm kind of calling this TennisCon month. But it officially starts the week of October 28th. There's going to be amazing lesson after amazing lesson, live streams. You always help me out with the kickoff party. You're in for that again, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you got a busy life now. I know there's a couple of new things going on where, might not have my buddy available, but hopefully you'll be good.
I got you, man. I got you. Yeah, for sure. So, cool, man. Really excited for what's coming in store. Like I said, I really mean it. I love TennisCon. I learned so much. I mean, I can't wait for it. So, and I can't wait to stream with you as well, and all that. So, thank you, Peter. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Again, check out the show notes page for the link to TennisCon 8. Incredible. It's the 8th year of the event that Peter's been running. And thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate it. And just looking forward to, collabing more with you. So thanks for everything.